Hello, one and all. It's my view, Dr. Stone, chapter 229. Why, man? Like, seriously, why? And for the second week in a row, I need to start this video by saying I was wrong. I was really, really wrong. After last chapter, I was convinced, 100% convinced, that the Y-Men had already made contact with humanity with the first few moon landing missions, and that there was a secret organization inside NASA who was working with them to mass-produce diamond batteries for the sake of attaining immortality. Yep, turns out that's not the case. Though I am much more concerned with myself here. I mean, seriously, 2 weeks ago I claimed that the moon was alive and sentient, and then last week I claimed that NASA's working with aliens. I might be becoming a conspiracy theorist. There might be tinfoil under this hat. That's concerning. Very, very concerning. Though I probably shouldn't be too surprised I was wrong, given this chapter seems to imply that humanity, all of humanity, is like really, really stupid. And that's because of the one line right here where it says, the stone is made so that it's easier to undo when more brain power is used and maximized. I mean, based on that line, it seems to be implying that when the Y-Men conquered other worlds, or parasitized, or however you want to describe it, those species managed to break free of the stone far more quickly than humanity did. Like when they went to the octopus planet a few centuries ago. Oh, they woke up in just a few short days. And when they went to the talking lion planet before that, oh, they were up and running within 2 weeks. I mean, that would actually make quite a bit of sense. The reason why the Y-Men are so confused by humanity's actions is because they assume that humanity will be up and running within a few short years, and instead, we just royally forked up and managed to stay petrified for almost 4,000 freaking years. So, I mean, they aren't mad at us, they're just, really, really disappointed. And I guess, their big plan is basically for humanity to wake up, figure out the truth about the Medusa, the petrification, all that, and then, start mass-producing the Y-Men, start mass-producing the batteries so that they could keep on living for all of eternity for both humanity and the Medusas. But that plan just really, really didn't work because, like I said, humanity is really freaking dumb. I mean, the other possibility, which I can't really deny, is that maybe they think that being petrified is a good thing. Maybe the other planets they went to enjoyed being petrified. Maybe they had some sort of telepathic abilities where the species of that planet could still communicate even though they were petrified or something like that. I mean, I'm really not sure how to take the Y-Men's, everything right now. What is their worldview? Do they think that being petrified is a good thing, a happy thing? Or do they want people to break out of the petrification so they can figure out a way to mass-produce Medusas and then just use it, sparingly just to extend their lives? I'm really not sure about that. I'm really, really confused about that point. Hopefully next chapter fills in some more of the blanks, explains exactly what it is the Y-Men think about petrification, exactly how the Y-Men view those they petrified. Like I said, a whole lot of questions about that, though thankfully this chapter actually answered quite a few questions as well. First off is the mystery that started this entire freaking series. Why have all these birds turned to stone, and why did nobody notice the giant beam of light that must have been triggered by it? And first off that question is the fact that the beam, the petrification waves themselves, are only visible to the species that will be affected by it, meaning that animals won't notice if humanity is being petrified because they can't see the light. It's in a spectrum that isn't visible to them, which, yay! I am so glad that was finally explained because that was a weird one. That was a really, really weird one. Secondly, why exactly were all the swallows turned to stone? Well, as it turns out, it wasn't a test run for the Medusa itself, but rather a test run for humanity to figure out if there was a species on this planet intelligent enough to actually find the pattern, to actually realize, wait a minute, something's going on here that's really freaking weird, and to do something about it. And in a weird, weird twist, Senku may have actually doomed the entire world to be petrified. I mean, obviously other people were examining the birds, trying to figure out what was going on with them, but Senku was the one that compiled all the data. In fact, when Zeno went to NASA and other scientists, he used Senku's data to show the exact pattern of where the petrification started and all of that. So if Senku hadn't done the math there, would humanity still have been petrified? Would their intelligence have passed the threshold that the Y-Men needed in order for them to, petrify all of humanity? I mean, at the very least, I think Senku might have sped up the process by a couple hours, a couple days, which could have had some really interesting implications. I mean, for one thing, let's not forget, Zeno, Stanley, all of Stanley's soldiers, some of the best people in America were all gathered together in that one camp to discuss the birds being turned to stone. And if, they'd waited a few more days for the Medusa to activate, they may have been across the world, and Zeno probably wouldn't have been able to wake everyone up as quickly as he did. Zeno also probably wouldn't have been in an area that, boosted his recovery rate as quickly as it did, because there was nitric acid in the soil, so that could have gone very, very differently. Also, let's not forget that Taiju was just about to confess to Yuzu when he was petrified, and if that had waited, even 5 more minutes, and he'd actually gotten the chance to, say his feelings to her, then their relationship in the stone world would be very, very different, and I would really like to see that. Anyway, though, then all of humanity was turned to stone, except the astronauts who made it back down to Earth, and had kids, and whose kids had kids, and whose kids had kids who were incredibly inbred. Yeah, there were like 6 people. I don't know how you can repopulate all of humanity with 6 people. I think you need at the very least like 50 to 100, so that's a weird thing, especially because they brought attention to it. When Kawaku realized that Senku's father was her ancestor, she was really weirded out by it, but everyone in the village, they all have 6 common ancestors, so yeah, that's a really, really weird detail in this series. Anyway, though, then we get to Treasure Island. We finally figure out why the Y-Men dropped Medusas on Treasure Island. And as it turns out, it was because this little nameless girl who doomed her entire island. Oh, poor nameless little girl. Poor nameless little girl. And as a result of her polishing the one ore while wearing her headdress, she managed to produce some electromagnetic waves that made it all the way up to the moon, which got the Y-Men thinking, hey, some people have broken out. They must be like really freaking smart. We should give them some Medusas. We should lure them with the possibility of having eternal life, of being petrified, managing to never have to die again. And so the Medusas rained down upon the island, and even told the little girl exactly how to activate it, as she heard the voice of the gods proclaiming 1 meter, 1 second. And that's how they found out how to use the Medusas. Yay! That was another, really big mystery I've been trying to figure out for quite a while. How exactly they figure out how to use the devices. Was it just trial and error, or was it something else? As it turns out, it was the Medusas themselves telling the little girl exactly how to use them. Yay! I mean, seriously, that mystery was really bothering me to the point where I actually thought that Matsukaze was a spy. I really thought that maybe he was working for the Y-Men, and he, came down to Earth and told everyone how to use Medusas and was petrified because of it, and his whole backstory was just one big lie. But turns out it's the truth. Huzzah! And then the Y-Men's plan went really, really poorly, as instead of, trying to replicate the Medusas, they instead went to war over them. And a lot of people died, a lot of people got petrified, and a whole bunch of Medusas were smashed to bits. Apparently the only one left was the one passed down to Soyuz's father. So yeah, instead of humanity making more Medusas, they destroyed every single one they could get their hands on. Bad move, Y-Men. Bad move. And it got so bad that the Y-Men even started wondering if they'd picked the wrong species to parasitize. Parasitize. That's a very strange word. I've never heard that word before. And I get that. I'm sure they were wanting those 3,000 years. Maybe we kicked dolphins off the list too easily. They were pretty smart. Maybe they were the ones we should have petrified. Oh, poor Y-Men. Poor Y-Men. Humanity just keeps proving again and again that they are too stupid for your needs. Thankfully, though, Senku woke up. Huzzah! And so did Zeno, and they both started building things up together. And I just love this side-by-side comparison here. Senku is trying to get fire started. Zeno already has a small city. Senku is trying to build a trap. Zeno already has a full factory and city and electronics and metals built up. Senku was seriously playing the Stone Age on hard mode here, but thankfully with a bit of luck and a bit of tenacity, he managed to succeed. He managed to get GPS. He managed to make radio waves that the Y-Men picked up on. Huzzah again! I'm doing that a lot this chapter. This does actually raise a fairly interesting point. Did Senku actually invent radio before Zeno did? I mean, I guess it wouldn't be a real high priority for him, but that is interesting. I mean, I guess Zeno was more focused on making firepower, but still, Senku managed to beat Zeno to, the radio age. That's really interesting. Anyway, though, then the Y-Men picked up on this radio signal and started wondering, wait a minute, humanity is smart enough to make radio waves, to rebuild civilization, so then why? Why aren't they trying to make medusas? Why aren't they after eternal life? Why? And that is how we got the first introduction of the Y-Man, this terrifying, terrifying voice coming from the great abyss of space, wondering why exactly humanity wasn't doing more to save themselves, why they weren't doing more to keep anyone from ever having to die ever again. And you know, that is a very good question, and something we should be concerned about, like really seriously concerned about, because someone pointed out in the comment section last chapter, this whole discussion isn't just going out to Senku's, base command back in Japan. It's going out to the entire world. The entire world now knows that the medusas can trigger eternal life. They can make sure that person never has to die ever again. And that could be bad. That could be really, really bad. Especially if Senku decides, you know what, you medusas, you're more trouble than you're worth. We're just going to bomb you to oblivion and wipe you out. I mean, I don't think Senku would necessarily do that, but I could definitely see him kicking out the medusas because he doesn't want to have to deal with them. He thinks they're more trouble than they're worth, and there would be a whole lot of people who would be really angry at him over that, and that could lead to a full-blown civil war, Senku versus the people who don't want to ever die again, which is probably a large number of people, probably a very, very large number of people. I mean, I could argue that maybe, these are people who were, petrified for 3,000 years and conscious for at least, some of that time. They might not want to live eternally. They might not want to ever go through petrification ever again, and they might be more willing to agree with Senku's side that maybe we don't need eternal life to keep thriving as a species. There's also the fact that, with eternal life, humanity would probably stagnate basically to a stop. I mean, we thrive, we create, we build because we need to, because otherwise we would die. And if suddenly you're told, oh, you don't need to worry about that, you'll just live forever thanks to this one little device that everybody has, that's really going to have an impact on humanity's drive, on their desire to, keep pushing forward. Now, I'm not saying progress would come to a complete halt. There's always going to be people like Senku who want to build bigger, build better, who make the next step in science, and people like Ryu who want more and more. Their greed, their desire will keep driving humanity, keep pushing it along, but let's not forget that Senku has only gotten as far as he has because he's been forced to. There's no way Senku would have gotten to the moon if he didn't have to go to the moon to, actually stop the Y-Men, to stop medusas. I mean, he would eventually, but not this quickly. Humanity was driven by a common enemy to work together to find a way to actually get Senku, Kawaku, Stanley, and Ryu to the moon, and without that, threat, without that fear, without that concern, they would have made much less progress on this path. But please, leave us down below. Do you think humanity is just really, really stupid? What has happened to the other planets that the Y-Man has parasitized? Still can't pronounce that properly. Do you think that Earth might be their first planet? Because it does seem like they have a system in place. They have steps they do in a very specific order, so I think they must have done this before. And if so, what happened to those planets? What's going on with them? What exactly is going to happen next with Senku? Because, he's currently trying to negotiate with the medusas, who just want new batteries so they can keep on living forever, which seems like a pretty simple thing to give them, but they also seem to want to petrify humanity to keep them from dying, which would be bad. Very, very bad. I mean, if they managed to petrify all of humanity all over again, it would take another, couple thousand years for anyone to wake up, and by then, everything they built up would have already been destroyed, and they have to start all over from scratch, and that would be annoying. That'd be really, really annoying. And do you think there's going to be a civil war? Do you think people will actually go to war over whether or not they want to be petrified again? But please let me know your thoughts down below. Be sure to like and subscribe. See you on this next video. And until then, peace!